All right.
What's up, man? Nice to
What's
meet
going on?
you. How's it going?
Good,
Not
good, good, bro. Good.
good, man. So I usually the way I like to do these things in general is, I do some minimal prep just so we can have a conversation, but I'm not trying to be a robotic interview guy. Like I have like questions that I'm actually genuinely curious about, and then those tend to be the things that people want to hear anyway. But so yeah, so like, are you excited? You got your fight in what, like 12 days?
Yeah, something like that. 12 days. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely excited.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a whole new experience going out to Abu Dhabi. Never been anywhere close to that area, so that's gonna be awesome.
That's the first one, right? The first one out there?
Yep, it'll be the very first. Well, not in Abu Dhabi. This is the first fight, the UFC fight on Fight Island.
Yeah.
So it's a historical event, and I get to be the first actual fight that takes place on the island because I'm the first on the card. So that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. So what do accommodations look like for you guys? Like, so when you go out there, you guys stay like in the facilities there?
Yeah, the UFC takes care of everything. They they pay for the cornermen and of course the fighters, the flights. We get they take care of the food, everything. Once we get there is taken care of. Transportation, food, hotels. Of course, we get paid. All that stuff is taken care of.
Oh, so like when people are trying to figure out why fighters get paid what they get paid, they can't wrap their brains around the amount of expenses that it costs to run the UFC as an organization.
Like, I don't know, bro. Like I'm not over here headlighting cards and stuff. So for me, I'm just happy to be out of the smaller shows where I'm getting paid, barely anything, sometimes breaking even. So I'm just happy to be over here, making some money from this stuff.
Yeah.
So, you're probably never going to hear me complain about any kind of fighter pay because, when I look back on this, I just do it because I love it anyway. So I probably do it for free.
Yeah, that's a good answer. So you said you're married, right?
Yeah. Married about a year now.
Okay. No kids?
No kids, not yet.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, the fighter pay thing, I can't take a position on it only because I haven't seen UFC's corporate books. Like I come from a background of building companies. And so like the kind of like superficial level conversations that people are having about the fighter pay, I think are incomplete, but I think that UFC also surrounded the market and they snapped up any ability for anyone to kind of really test what their market value is. But
yeah,
anyway, but so one thing I saw a lot of when I watched your tape is you like to beat the shit out of people's bodies. So what'd you think of that fight last night with Poirier and Hooker?
You know what, bro? I'm ashamed to say that I didn't watch the fight last night. I missed it.
You should definitely watch that.
Yeah. Everyone was talking about it. I went over to my friend's house, one of my teammates, and they had just got done watching it, but I missed it. And they were all talking about how good of a fight it was.
It was incredible. Like and you train with Max, yeah?
Yes, I do.
So you saw Max fight Dustin Poirier, then I assume, yeah?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, like that, except actually that was a fucking incredible fight too. It was at least that good. At least that good. It was amazing. Yeah. Poirier said he could have gone another 2 rounds after the fight, which I was like, that's got to be so disheartening. That like that's the kind of thing that like if you have any experience actually, whatever level it is, and you just put yourself in the position where you land your best shot on a guy and he just eats it and it's just right in front of you, then you land another one and he just eats it and he's standing in front of you and you're like, what the fuck? I mean, like both those guys, I'm like, that's one of the things that I found so impressive is like neither of them got disheartened at all, even though the other guy was just eating their best shots and just continue to come forward,
Yeah, I heard it was like a technical slugfest, like those sharp, but they were just banging the whole time.
Absolutely. So the guy, so the dude you're fighting, I looked at his record and I watched a couple of his fights and what's the deal with his like the schedule of his fights? Like I've never seen someone who had so many multi-year layoffs, like at like sporadic times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's the deal with that, bro. I think he might have had some injuries and stuff. Like I myself am coming off of a little bit of a layoff from
Yeah.
injuries, but I think that's what he was experiencing. But I don't really know for sure. Um, but yeah, I've got a chance to watch a bunch of his stuff too. Obviously, studying it and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good stylistic matchup for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting fight. Like from just, from watching both your guys' tape, it looks, I was actually surprised, like the few, like when I watched, like I watched your fights before I looked at, like the results of your fights. And I was unsurprised that you win by knockout a lot. Where when I was watching his, I watched one or two of his, and I was expecting his record to be a lot of knockouts. And I said, he finishes almost, like he almost always submits guys when he wins, which
yeah, he's got, I think he's got 8 submission wins.
Yeah.
But he also has a handful of submission losses, which is weird.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it takes a lot of chances.
I think that's what it is. He ends up on the ground, and anything can happen in MMA, but yeah, I think I think he favors the ground. I mean, I think it reflects that in his record. When you're finishing guys on the ground, you're probably more of a ground guy.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
He mixes it up on the feet too. So
absolutely, he's he's an English fighter. Like I can't think of a single guy from England that avoided banging on the feet.
Yeah.
Like I can't even think of one.
Yeah, no, I can't think of any either. I'm sure those guys, they like to throw down.
Yeah. Same with guys from Hawaii. Also, I can't think of a single one that even guys who are like, they're wizards on the ground. They all bang, all of them.
Yeah, that's because there's not a single one that doesn't. Like this whole Fight Island thing is new to everybody, but back here in Hawaii, we were raised on Fight Island right here.
Yeah.
We're the original Fight Islands.
For sure, dude. I was gonna say, yeah, like, what do you think that is? How come Hawaiians love punching people in the face so much?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Something in the water down here, I guess. It goes back. It's a good question, my man. It's something about it. Something about the culture here growing up. Fighting is just part of the culture, and something that you get into growing up in school and get into fights. It's just part of how it is.
Yeah. I love Hawaiian culture, man. Like it has that feeling of like, if you're in, you're all the way in. And if you're out, that's a bad spot to be in. But for the most part, like everybody seems to be like, you get exactly what you give, At least in my experience.
Yeah. You've been down here to Hawaii?
Oh yeah.
Right on.
I'm in California, so it's from mainland. I think it's about as close as it can be.
Where it's as close as it can be to anything. I think it's basically, you guys are basically our neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of that, what about the time difference? Like, how are you planning on like, when are you going to actually go out there and get acclimated to the time? And have you been training at random times, like, to where you technically be, so like you figure out whatever, if you're going out at 3:30 in Abu Dhabi time?
No, so yeah, the time of the fight in Abu Dhabi is in the morning.
Oh,
so,
right.
Yeah. Right. So it's not too far off from our time here in Hawaii. But we also, it's not elevated. It's sea level, right? So it's not gonna be much of a difference on the lungs. But there's other differences too. Like there's the humidity, the heat. It's supposed to be pretty hot down there. So we get there pretty early to adjust to all that kind of stuff. After you get a few workouts in, your body adjusts pretty good. And once you get on an eating schedule, but the good thing is that we're not shifting too much from fight time in Hawaii to fight time there. I'm basically gonna kind of be on Hawaii time when I fight. So I'm happy we're not fighting at a weird time sometime weird in the morning, or like early morning, like 2 a.m. or something, Abu Dhabi time.
Mm-hmm.
But adjusting's never really been a problem for me. Like even when I went to China, it only took me like 2 days to adjust fully. So.
Oh, so the first UFC fight that was in China?
Yeah.
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 I thought you won that fight, by the way.
Yeah. A lot of people, that was the general takeaway from that one. But sometimes the judges start looking at what the judges are looking at.
Yeah.
you know, it's sometimes it's their opinion that matters the most.
Yeah, I mean, so what I was going to say is in terms of that is just that what I've noticed in the last, you know, I don't know, call it three years at the UFC is, you know, there are these fights that are draws. I mean, you know, like they're just all intents and purposes. The way I look at it is like, if guys go 15 minutes or 25 minutes and you think one guy won and the dude sitting next to you thinks the other guy won, I mean, you know, just like if it's coming down to like opinions of a few people and it's that tight, like if you're man to man on it, like if you guys are, you know, if you just like, you know, you're doing like a smoker at a gym, you know, you shake the guy's hand and you're like, great fight. It's basically a draw, right? And I think that in the last few years, the UFC is almost, even though like the judges will give it one way or the other, in some cases they treat it that way. You know, where like they give Jose Aldo, you know, he goes down to 135, he loses to Marlon Moraes, but at the, you know, it's basically a draw, and so they give him a title shot because, you know, Cejudo asked for it. And like and then like Yoel Romero, he lost a bunch in a row, but all of them were super questionable. And so the UFC can kind of look at it kind of like, those were really draws, not like really losses.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. Like, you know, there's the rankings and there's the official win or loss and there's all that stuff. But, you know, at the end of the day, the UFC can look at it and the matchmakers can look at it and be like, well, you know, this probably should have happened, or this was like a controversial decision, and they can always make their own choices. That's why the rankings, you know, it's cool. I like the ranking system. It's cool, but it doesn't matter it doesn't matter too much when it comes to like title fights and who gets the next shot and stuff. Because like Aldo, you know, is a good example. Like that guy's you know, he's like he's a legend. He was dominating the division, but he probably wasn't rankings wise in line for that shot. But you know, he gets it. At all. He is who he is, you know. So that's what I mean by the UFC can, at the end of the day, they can do what they want to do.
Yeah, the title shots come down to dough, you know, unless it's completely outlandish. I mean, like, you know, what's going on with Conor right now is Dana's holding him out because he wants him to fight the winner of Gaethje and Khabib. I mean, it's that simple. That's why Conor's so mad and saying that he's retiring, because he wants to fight. And Dana's like, yeah, no, he's just not going to risk it. Like there are a bunch of fights that he could put Conor in where Conor's almost certain to win, but the risk is too high to the business, you know, like because it's like Conor is a major business decision. Like when you put him in, because it's like, so let's say, I mean, think about the earning potential. Let's say Gaethje beats Khabib, because in my opinion, Gaethje is the worst matchup. Gaethje's actually the only fighter at 155 that I can see a very realistic scenario where he beats Khabib. I think Khabib smashes everybody else, just because his defensive wrestling is so good. And so if he can keep that fight on the feet, I mean, would you pick Khabib or Gaethje in a MMA glove, you know, kickboxing match, right? So if he can keep it standing for a couple rounds and bang him up like he did Ferguson, I mean, he can win that fight. So if he wins that fight and then Conor comes in and then Conor fights Gaethje for the belt, Conor will beat Gaethje because it's just styles make fights. And Conor, actually, I'm going to tangent real quick because something you said in an interview that I watched that was super smart. When someone asked you about Taekwondo and you were talking about how hard it is to prepare for someone who has all those different angles with the kicks. And I mean, this is not surprising that you are super knowledgeable and smart on fighting, obviously, but that's something that I talk about all the time, which is that like there are these guys that, whether it's a stylistic choice or it's just the way that they kind of fight, but they're very unmechanical, like guys like Nate Diaz or like Dominic Cruz, where the strikes are coming at these super weird angles that you can't prepare for, you know, where like a guy like Gaethje is very mechanical. He has incredible footwork, but he's super mechanical in terms of, you know, jab, cross, hook, uppercut, and they come from the same angles all the time. And that historically is a puzzle that Conor has solved. You know, like no one has touched Conor that fights like that. So my opinion is Conor beats Gaethje, and then Khabib comes in, and then Khabib and Conor. So you'll probably have one of the biggest pay-per-views ever in that fight. And then if Khabib comes back, that'll be the biggest pay-per-view ever, you know, with Conor like as a, you know, defending the belt.
Yeah, that's smart. You're I think you're onto something with that.
Yeah.
Definitely smart. Yeah. Yeah, but like you said earlier, Gaethje, I think Gaethje has the best chance against Khabib as well. You know, and those punches he was landing on Ferguson is like, Ferguson, I think, is not something is like, he's not even human. I mean,
No.
those punches would put anybody else out. I think, like
Anyway.
anybody. Yeah. And he was eating them. And even the last punch, didn't he break his orbital bone or something?
Yeah, I think that jab, the one where he tried to shake it off. Like,
And he didn't get knocked out. He was just shaking it off, and he freaking broke his orbital bone. Like, he didn't get knocked out. He was hurt maybe a little bit, but Brad, those punches would put almost anyone out. And I think if he lands a punch like that on Khabib, I think he can put him out.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, like, some people, like there are like levels in terms of people's brain to body connection. You know, where and I'm not even necessarily just fighters. Like I'll find myself like sitting like super contorted and my wife will be like, why are you sitting like that? And I'm just like not even like aware of how I'm sitting. And I think that, and I mean, that's just me being an idiot, but like, I think that one thing that Tony may have intentionally stumbled on or whatever is he literally disconnects his brain from his body when he fights. It's the only way you could even explain the way that he could eat those shots and just continue to move forward for that long. Like Gaethje hits like a Mack truck. It is incredible, man.
Yeah. And it's crazy because there was no one watching, right? There's no one in the stadium, so you could just hear those shots land more. You know, you could hear the smack every time. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good fight.
So wait, so what time do you fight in Abu Dhabi? Like, so like what, like local time?
I was just talking to one of my coaches, and he said it was the local time there is sometime in the morning. I think I want to say like 9 a.m., but I'm pretty sure that information is available now on the UFC website and whatnot. But I'm not sure, bro. I kind of just let my coaches take care of that kind of stuff. I don't really look into that too much.
Yeah. So do you like fighting on the same, like Max is on the same card? You like fighting on the same card as your teammates? You guys travel together and stuff?
This is the first time I'm fighting in the UFC with a teammate on the card. Actually, well, I kind of had a teammate. In China, I had one too. We weren't really traveling together. But it's cool to be on the same card as Max because you know, I think he should be the main event, to be honest. But you know, we've been training together for a while now, and we have the same coach and stuff, so it's cool to be on the same card. And yeah, it's definitely gonna be a good feeling, not just going up there by yourself, but having another guy on there fighting too, you know, for that support. So.
You and Max spar?
Yeah, we've gone thousands and thousands of rounds in our career.
That's awesome, dude. Because if you spar Max and then you go get in there with basically anyone else, it's gonna look like they're in slow motion.
Oh yeah, and Max brings the heat too, so, you know.
Yeah, it's I mean the Volkanovski thing, like the only, you know, because like, you know, at least my perspective of you know, Max's game plan has always been that it's like he knows that he's as good as anyone going 60%. And so he goes 60% first round, second round, and then middle of the third, he turns it all the way on and he just obliterates guys at that point.
Yeah, Max likes to mess with you in a fight. Like, he likes to make it look like you're gonna be able to hang with him. Like say when he was fighting, what's his name, the jiu-jitsu guy, Ortega.
Oh God, that was brutal.
So man. What he did on that fight was genius. He fought Ortega the first, I think it was like the first 2 rounds, and wasn't going 100%. And Ortega starts to think, I'm hanging with Max right now. I'm striking with Max. I'm landing. When really it was just Max was just messing with his mind. And then you see in that fight that Max is just doing enough on the first and third to stay ahead a little bit. And then third round, fourth round, he just starts to show that, hey, you know, this is me going maybe a little bit more or a little closer to 100%, whereas before, and by that point for Ortega, it was just too late. Like, he was already thinking he was striking with Max when Max was just toying with him.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I always thought about that in terms of the cardio, and that is really smart. Because he's like, he almost gives them success on their feet in early to make them think, Oh, okay. I should probably keep the fight here. And he's like,
Yeah,
yeah, totally. You're doing really well.
he does.
I've never had anyone do so well. And then
Yeah,
just bury him.
yeah. That's what he does, bro. He just tricks you into thinking you're gonna have success, and then just kills you in the later round. And he doesn't stop. You know, if you look at the way Max fights, he just doesn't stop punching you. He's constantly, the combinations he puts together are ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. And like even in the Poirier fight that he lost, like that was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen because, you could just see that at least what it looked like to me was that, he was used to having such a tremendous reach advantage on guys that like in the first round, it took some adjusting. Because I mean, obviously Poirier he's not just 155, he's like top of 155.
Yeah.
And so Max took a lot of punishment in that first round while he got used to the range. And then by the end of the fight, it could have gone either way. I mean, like once he figured it out, he made incredible adjustments given, how many times he got hit in that first round. And then, because, I mean, he was, if anybody just watched like the fourth and fifth round, you would think he either won, like dead even, or he won, then he's a stud.
Yeah. It was a close fight. It was definitely a competitive fight. Was that as close a fight you think as the fight last night with Hooker and Poirier?
Oh man, the fight last night. So they said on the scorecards that Dan Hooker actually had landed more strikes, but like just in terms of like who took more damage, like Hooker looked like he took. Yeah. But they were, like I said, they were beating each other's bodies up too. I mean, like heavy shots to the body. Like your step in left hook is a beautiful punch. Those guys did that a lot last night too. He was just like, oh man, those are the ones that you've just like when you watch it, you're like, oh god.
Yeah. It hurts you, and you're not even getting hit. It hurts your sides. Yeah.
So last thing I was going to ask you, what did you watch the Max Rajkov or the corner thing between Drysdale and Max where where he was trying to pump him? Like, did you have an opinion on that situation, like whether the coach did anything wrong?
Yeah, I had an opinion, and then my opinion changed slightly after watching an interview with Daniel Cormier and Ariel Helwani. At first, my opinion was like what the hell? Like, you gotta stop the fight. Like, the coach is your fighter is, and I've cornered guys plenty of times too. And this guy is saying over and over he doesn't want to fight. He's asking him to call it. He asked a bunch of times. I think like 9 times or something like that. He said, "Call it."
That's what people said. I watched it back. It was more like 4 or 5, I think. Yeah. I don't know how to get 9, but
anyway, I would have definitely been doing the same thing as the coach. For the first, he says it once, says it twice, and there's you're in between rounds for a minute. For the first 10, 15, 20 seconds to be like, he's saying, call it, like, no, you're going to push through this. You're going to be okay. And then later on in the minute break, maybe his mind will start to shift a little bit. He'll start to recover a little bit, and he'll be like, okay, we're ready to go. But if he's still saying, call it, 45, 50 seconds into the break, then I probably would have called it. The coach and fighter, what people might not take into consideration is the level on which they know each other. And apparently,
yes, yep,
yeah, apparently Max and the coach, they live together and they're real close. And so coach, he would have known Max, just the way he operates in his head, and a lot. He'll know him a lot better than almost anybody. Yep. So you got to take that into consideration too, as to why maybe he didn't stop it. Maybe this is just something that they go through. Maybe it's a challenge that Max has, mentally. You just don't know. There's a few different aspects you got to take in consideration. Like, people could easily say, like, yeah, he's saying stop it, so you stop it. But there's other aspects I think that people aren't taking into consideration. But even with all that being said, even if it was me cornering and I knew my fighter real well and he's still saying to call it and the minute's almost over, I think I probably would have called it.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he did.
But the ref did, right?
Well, no. So it was actually Drysdale was the first one to say it. Like, so the ref came over and said something, and Drysdale kind of stood up and was like, he says he wants to call it. And,
Oh,
but basically, yeah, I mean, like my thing was like if he would have gone out and fought the third round and just gotten, you know, obliterated, that, I mean, then there's certainly a conversation to have. And at the same time, like, so let me actually rewind. So I actually watched an interview. I took a pretty hard stance that I thought that the coach didn't do anything wrong because he didn't go on anyway. Like, you know, and I assumed, you know, that he knows his fighter well enough to, you know, like, he's not going to do that if he didn't think that he could win. He's also Drysdale's an undefeated MMA fighter. So, you know, keeping that in mind too, like, Drysdale's never taken a loss, never. And so, and his fighter is also undefeated. And so when his fighter is saying, call it, he's saying, I'm going to take the very first loss between the two of us on the stool. Now, I will certainly defend Max not going out there because, you know, I mean, it was clear to me he was going to go out there, he was going to get hit, and he was going to go down. It was just because he was so tired. Like, he was so exhausted. And what's his name that he was fighting was not tired. I mean, he was gonna batter him and then finish him. But I watched the interview with Max after all this stuff, and he directly said exactly what you were saying, which was that he said that the way that he handles stress is, I always feel like I need to run away. He's like, and my coach knows me, he knows that about me. And so he like completely took it off. He's like, I don't understand how anybody could think that he did something wrong. He's like, when it was me, you know, like, he was saying that he needs that stuff, you know.
And what's gonna suck for him is that, I mean, he's gonna be the one that is gonna have to live with that, you know. He's gonna be the one that's gonna have to live and sleep at night saying that, like, you know, he wasn't able to get off the stool and stuff. Like, for me, that would be a tough one to deal with. But again, you know, you don't know what he was going through. You don't know if he was like real sick or something. You don't know, like, if he was
took it on 5 days notice.
Yeah.
Coronavirus 5 days.
Against a real good guy, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors that you put into. There's a lot of factors you got to put in. You can never judge a fighter, especially from the outside, if you don't know anything about it, without taking into consideration. There's just so much that goes into these things, and 5 days notice is a short period of time. And also taking into consideration that he probably cut a bunch of weight in that 5 days, where, you know, his body's just not quite up to par. I'm sure given that same fight with the same guy and everything on a full camp, that wouldn't happen, you know.
I totally agree. Yeah, he's good too. Did you watch the fight?
I think Max he fought my boy Zach Zane in the Contender Series. Zach Zane's from Hawaii, and I think he held down Zach for 15 minutes. He's a good wrestler, and that's hard to do because Zach Zane has good wrestling defense.
No, he's got every one of his wins were all finishes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I looked and that was another thing. Like, before I weighed in, I was like, so, you know, is this guy someone who's gone deep before? And he had never gone past the middle of the second round.
Maybe I gotta check my facts on that one then.
Yeah, because he had four first round submissions and then 1 second round submission. He's 5-0.
Was one of those in the Contender Series?
I'm not sure.
Well, anyway, I thought it was, but yeah, that's right.
But he looked. I mean, I thought he looked excellent in the first round, and then he just, you know, then he was exhausted.
Yeah, I heard that. I didn't watch the first round, but I heard that he possibly could have won that round.
I think he did. I didn't think it was even. I didn't even think it was close. I actually couldn't. Like, so the reason why, because I had watched the corner interaction, and then, you know, and I was like, the coach didn't do anything wrong, and then people were taking such a hard stance that I was like, okay, let me go actually watch the fight and see if there's more to see. And that was after I saw the Ariel and DC thing too. And DC said that he thought he won the first round and Ariel thought he lost. So I watched that really closely. I didn't even think it was close. I thought Max won for sure. Like, the only way that you would think it could go the other way is if the judges just don't even count submission attempts. I mean, he had the guy defending submissions.
Yeah.
80% of the round. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, not on Contender. He was his last fight was in Titan FC.
Oh, okay. I don't know where I was thinking on that. It must have been somebody else. Yeah. Anyway, my man, I have another appointment coming up at 10 in a few minutes, 5 minutes.
Rock and roll, man. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I'll watch every one of your fights for the rest of your career now. So
right on, Jesse. Thank you, bro.
Thanks, man. I'll post.
Right.
I'll send you a link when it goes up.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jesse. You have a good rest of your day, my man.
Yeah. Good luck.